Harvard researchers spent 2 decades tracking over 90,000 people. The findings were extraordinary, not because they discovered something entirely new, but because they confirmed something most physicians never bring up during your annual checkup. Something sitting quietly on a form you filled out years ago and probably never thought about again: your blood type. That single letter is not just a transfusion code. It is one of the most precise biological maps your body carries. A map that points directly to your strongest advantages, your most dangerous hidden vulnerabilities, and the exact daily habits that match your specific genetic blueprint. And the vast majority of men over 45 are sitting on this information completely unused. Today, Dr. Walter Strong walks you through each blood type, O, AB, and AB, with the real science behind each one, and the exact protocol tailored to your biology. But before we dive in, there is one critical piece of information, nothing to do with the letters on your blood type card, that determines whether any of this actually works for you in the real world. Dr. Strong will reveal it toward the end, and it reframes everything that comes before it. Most people do the opposite of what the science recommends. They follow generic health advice written for the average human, which, biologically speaking, does not actually exist. Your neighbor might be type O. You might be type A. The protocols that protect him could be entirely wrong for you. The supplement he swears by could be counterproductive for your specific biology. Nobody is telling you this. Today, that changes. Blood type by blood type. Let's begin with the oldest blood type on the planet, type O, the blood of the original human. Type O emerged approximately 50,000 years ago in the earliest hunter-gatherer populations. It is the ancestral blueprint, and it carries a cardiovascular advantage that modern medicine is only beginning to properly quantify. Here is the mechanism. Type O blood contains significantly lower levels of a clotting protein called von Willebrand factor. Less clotting activity means blood flows more freely and more cleanly through your vessels. Think of it as natural lubrication built into your entire cardiovascular system from birth. The pipes stay open. The pressure remains manageable. The risk of arterial blockage stays consistently lower than in any other blood type. That landmark Harvard study found type O individuals carry a 23% lower risk of coronary heart disease compared to all other blood types combined. That is not a marginal statistical footnote. That is structural protection written directly into your biology. And there is a second layer to this advantage that goes even deeper. Early type O populations demonstrated measurable resistance to malaria. The malaria parasite binds far less effectively to type O red blood cells, making it significantly harder for the infection to take hold. That immune signature is still detectable in the biological profile of type O individuals today, tens of thousands of years after those early survival pressures shaped this blood type into what it is. So type O begins with a genuine, significant, measurable head start. But there is a vulnerability hiding beneath that cardiovascular strength that almost nobody talks about. And if you are type O, this part is critical. Your stomach is your weak point. The bacterium Helicobacter pylori, the primary driver of stomach ulcers, chronic gastritis, and one of the leading contributors to gastric cancer, attaches to type O stomach lining with far greater ease than to any other blood type. The surface receptors on type O stomach cells are structurally more accessible to this particular organism. As a result, type O individuals are statistically more susceptible to H. pylori colonization, and they recover more slowly from gastrointestinal infections once those infections take hold. Here is the part that surprises most people. H. pylori does not announce itself. There is no dramatic warning signal in the early stages, no obvious pain, no clear symptom you can point to. It colonizes silently, and over months and years, sometimes over entire decades, it quietly erodes the protective mucus layer lining your stomach. By the time recognizable symptoms appear, the damage has frequently been accumulating for a very long time. And because type O individuals are the most susceptible to this silent colonization, they are also the group most likely to have been living with it completely undetected. If you are type O and have never been specifically tested for H. pylori, that is the first conversation to have with your physician. The test is straightforward, a simple breath test or stool antigen panel, inexpensive, non-invasive, and for type O individuals, genuinely important information to have. Here is the type O protocol Dr. Strong recommends. Physical activity is not optional for type O. It is a genetic necessity. Type O carries the highest baseline levels of dopamine and noradrenaline of any blood type. Your nervous system was literally built around movement. It evolved in a body that walked miles every single day, carried loads, climbed, and ran. Without regular physical output, these neurochemicals have nowhere productive to go, and the consequences are predictable. Restlessness, irritability, disrupted sleep, difficulty concentrating, and over time, genuine metabolic disruption. 30 minutes of brisk walking daily combined with resistance training at least twice per week will do more for your long-term health trajectory than most supplements combined. That is not a rough estimate. That is what the biology of this blood type specifically calls for. Protect your gut actively and consistently. Limit NSAIDs, ibuprofen, aspirin, naproxen, unless they are medically required. These medications irritate the stomach lining in anyone, but in type O individuals, that irritation lands on tissue that is already more structurally vulnerable. Add fermented foods to your weekly routine. Kefir, kimchi, plain yogurt with live cultures, sauerkraut. 2 to 3 servings per week measurably supports your gut microbiome and builds a meaningful defense against bacterial imbalance. And be more deliberate than the average person about food hygiene, especially when traveling internationally and with undercooked proteins. Your gastrointestinal recovery time is genuinely slower than other blood types. Respect that biological reality rather than pushing through it. Type O, the strongest cardiovascular protection on the planet, the most vulnerable digestive system. Keep moving every day, actively guard your stomach, and your genetic blueprint does the heavy lifting on the rest. Now, if you already know your blood type, write it in the comments right now. Just the letter. Dr. Strong reads every single comment on this channel, and the pattern of who watches this content is genuinely fascinating. There are always far more of one blood type than you would statistically expect. Type A, the immune warrior with a hidden cost. Type A emerged roughly 20,000 years ago as human populations transitioned from hunting to agriculture. Closer settlements, shared food sources, dramatically higher social density, and entirely new viral threats that the immune system had never encountered before. The Type A immune system evolved to meet that challenge head-on, and it does. Type A individuals mount some of the most aggressive, effective immune responses against viral infections of any blood type. In younger years, that is a genuine and meaningful biological advantage. But here is the price that comes with it, and it is a price that compounds quietly for decades. Type A blood has statistically higher coagulation activity, stickier platelets, more active clotting factors running at a higher baseline. A major study published in Circulation, one of the world's most respected cardiology journals, found that Type A individuals carry a 23% higher risk of heart attack compared to Type O. But that is only the first layer of the risk. There is a second layer sitting directly on top of it that makes the first significantly worse. Type A has the highest baseline cortisol level of all blood types. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. In short, controlled bursts, it sharpens focus, mobilizes energy, and prepares your body to perform. But when cortisol runs chronically high, day after day, month after month, year after year, The damage it causes is systematic and cumulative. It inflames arterial walls. It disrupts sleep architecture. It progressively impairs insulin sensitivity, and it accelerates cognitive aging in ways that do not become visible until significant damage has already occurred. Here's the specific mechanism that matters most for type A individuals. Cortisol directly damages the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of your blood vessels. When cortisol runs at elevated levels over time, this lining becomes inflamed, less elastic, less resilient, like rubber that has been stressed and stretched until it loses its natural flexibility. And when your platelets are already stickier than the biological average, those inflamed vessel walls become precisely the surface those platelets are most likely to cling to. That combination, chronically elevated stress hormone layered on top of higher than average coagulation activity, is exactly what makes type A cardiovascular risk so meaningful and so directly addressable through intentional lifestyle choices. You can modify both variables. Most type A individuals never fully realize that managing daily stress is not a soft wellness preference. It is direct, targeted cardiovascular intervention. Dr. Strong treated a patient named Marcus Reed, 54 years old, healthy weight, a non-smoker, genuinely and consistently active. By every standard metric, Marcus looked like a man in excellent health. His heart attack came on a Tuesday morning following one of the most brutal months of his professional career. Cortisol had been running at sustained crisis levels for weeks without interruption. His platelets did exactly what they were genetically programmed to do in that biological environment. That is type A biology operating unmanaged inside a sustained high-stress environment. The brutal and deeply ironic truth of this blood type is precisely this. The same immune system ferocity that protected your ancestors against viral threats is the same biological intensity that, when misdirected through chronic stress, turns against your own cardiovascular system. And that heat, compounding silently over decades, carries a real and measurable cost. Here is the Type A protocol: blood pressure monitoring every 6 months, not once a year. Cortisol-driven vascular pressure builds silently in Type A individuals, and catching the early trend is the entire game. Once the numbers are moving in the wrong direction, you want to know immediately, not at your next annual appointment. Build a daily cortisol reset practice. This does not have to be formal meditation, though the research supporting meditation for cortisol regulation in high-stress individuals is genuinely strong. It can be 10 minutes without your phone in the morning. A deliberate breathing pattern, 4 seconds inhaling, 6 seconds exhaling, practiced consistently every single morning. What matters most is the consistency, not the duration. 5 minutes practiced every single day outperforms 1 hour practiced only on weekends by a significant biological margin, because cortisol regulation is a daily physiological process, not a weekly event. For Type A, this is not wellness theater. This is preventive cardiology in its most practical form. And here is the one most physicians routinely miss. Ask your doctor to check your homocysteine levels at your next blood panel. Type A individuals tend toward elevated homocysteine, an amino acid that, when present at high levels, actively degrades the inner lining of your arteries over time. The solution is straightforward and inexpensive. Adequate folate, B12, and B6, found in dark leafy greens, eggs, and legumes, directly targets this specific genetic vulnerability. Consistent, accessible, and precisely matched to your biology. Type A, powerful immunity, elevated cardiac risk, high stress baseline. Manage cortisol as though it is your single most important health metric, because for your blood type, it genuinely is. Type B, the metabolic generalist. Type B appeared approximately 15,000 years ago among nomadic populations moving constantly across Central Asia and the Himalayan plateau. These were people who encountered radically different food environments from one season to the next, and the body adapted accordingly. The result is the most metabolically flexible immune system of any blood type, and that flexibility is genuinely and impressively real. Type B processes, animal proteins, fermented dairy products, grains, and a wide variety of plant foods, without triggering the same inflammatory responses that other blood types frequently produce. One week eating salmon and full-fat yogurt. The next week, lentils, eggs, and roasted vegetables. Your biology handles both with equal efficiency, adapting to the available inputs without complaint. This metabolic versatility is your biological superpower. But here is what that same flexible immune system does when it is consistently pushed beyond its calibration range. And this is the vulnerability that most Type B individuals never see coming. It overshoots. Type B individuals show statistically elevated rates of autoimmune conditions, situations where the immune system loses its precision targeting and begins producing inflammatory responses against the body's own tissues. Rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, certain forms of chronic inflammatory bowel disease. These are not rare edge cases found only in medical literature. They affect a significant and growing number of men in their 50s and 60s, and they frequently go undiagnosed for years, sometimes for an entire decade, because the early warning signals are so easily and so incorrectly attributed to normal aging. Persistent fatigue that no amount of sleep seems to resolve, joint stiffness that appears in the morning and fades by midday, mild but recurring digestive irregularity. If you are Type B and have been dismissing those signals as simply getting older, the science suggests it is worth taking a significantly closer look. The modern food environment is, for Type B, a precision calibration problem. Refined sugars, heavily processed seed oils, ultra-processed convenience foods, these do not simply deliver nutritionally empty calories. They actively trigger systemic inflammation that progressively disrupts the immune system's precision over time. For Type B specifically, certain corn-derived products and heavily processed wheat appear to generate a particularly disruptive inflammatory response, one that accumulates gradually and creates the exact conditions under which autoimmune activity becomes more likely. This is not about eliminating entire food categories with rigid obsession. It is about understanding which specific inputs your immune system consistently reads as threat signals and reducing your exposure to them deliberately and systematically. Here is the Type B protocol Dr. Strong recommends. Get your C-reactive protein, CRP, checked annually without exception. This is your primary inflammatory marker. A consistent reading above 1 milligram per liter without a clear infection or injury cause means your immune system is running in a sustained state of activation, and identifying the trigger before it becomes a diagnosed condition is far more effective than treating the condition once it arrives. That conversation belongs directly with your physician. Reduce processed food consumption aggressively and consistently. Every health-focused video makes this recommendation. Dr. Strong understands that. But for Type B specifically, this is not generic wellness advice. It is a direct instruction from your biology. Your immune system processes these inputs differently than other blood types do. Act accordingly, not because it sounds responsible, but because the science of your specific blood type supports it clearly. Embrace your metabolic flexibility deliberately by rotating your food sources regularly. Variety is not merely tolerable for Type B. It is the biological design. Your body performs at its highest level when it is working with diverse, rotating nutritional inputs rather than a narrow, repetitive diet. For physical activity, moderate sustained movement produces the best outcomes for Type B. Cycling, swimming, hiking, rowing. High-intensity training without adequate recovery between sessions tends to spike inflammatory markers in Type B individuals more sharply than in other blood types. The intensity is not the enemy. The insufficient recovery is. Type B, the most adaptable metabolism of any blood type. Keep the immune system precisely calibrated, and it protects you with remarkable consistency. Type AB, the newest human blueprint, and the one carrying the most urgent warning for anyone watching this who is over 50. Type AB is the youngest blood type in human evolutionary history. It appeared approximately 1,000 years ago as Type A and Type B populations mixed and merged. In evolutionary terms, that is extraordinarily recent, barely a moment in biological time, and that recency shows in fascinating ways. Type AB inherited immune tolerance from both parent blood types. It produces fewer aggressive inflammatory immune reactions to foreign cells, which translates into measurably lower risk of certain gastrointestinal and gastric cancers. In that specific domain, Type AB carries genuine and meaningful biological protection. But there is another side to this profile that demands equal and serious attention. Type AB individuals carry an 82% higher statistical risk of cognitive decline and memory impairment compared to Type O individuals. 82%. Allow that number to settle for a moment before moving past it, because it represents one of the most significant blood type-specific health signals in the current research. The mechanism driving this elevated risk is cerebral microcirculation. Type AB's coagulation profile creates subtle but cumulative changes in blood flow through the brain's smallest and most delicate vessels over the course of decades. These are not large, dramatic blockages that produce sudden, identifiable events. These are micro-level changes happening silently in vessels smaller than a single human hair, accumulating year after year, quietly reducing the efficiency of blood delivery to specific brain regions, particularly those responsible for memory formation and high-level executive function. Small vessel disease of the brain is one of the primary drivers of age-related cognitive decline, including vascular dementia, one of the most common and most underdiagnosed conditions affecting men over 65. And the critical point about small vessel disease is this: it is largely addressable through the exact same daily habits that protect your cardiovascular system. The brain problem and the heart problem share the same underlying mechanism, and therefore, the same solution set. Every choice you make to protect your heart's vessels is simultaneously a choice you are making to protect your brain's vessels. To be precise and scientifically honest, this is elevated statistical risk, not a predetermined personal outcome, but it is a clear and well-documented signal, and it comes with a clear and immediately actionable plan. Here is the Type AB protocol. For you, brain health and cardiovascular health are inseparable. They are the same biological target approached from two directions. Blood pressure control, blood sugar regulation, and cholesterol management are your primary cognitive protection strategy, not just your cardiac ones. What damages the vessels feeding your heart damages the vessels feeding your brain. Every intervention is doing double duty. Omega-3 fatty acids, specifically DHA, directly support cerebral blood flow and actively reduce neuroinflammation. DHA is incorporated into the cell membranes of your neurons. It maintains membrane fluidity and responsiveness. When DHA levels run chronically low, neuronal communication becomes progressively less efficient, and the inflammatory processes that contribute to small vessel damage face far less biological resistance. 2 servings of fatty fish per week, wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, or a quality fish oil supplement discussed with your physician represents one of the most direct and evidence-supported interventions available to Type AB individuals. Sleep is non-negotiable for Type AB. This is not a soft lifestyle recommendation. It is a neurological requirement. During deep sleep, your brain's glymphatic system activates and clears amyloid plaques, the protein deposits associated with Alzheimer's disease pathology. Think of it as your brain's overnight cleaning and maintenance crew. When you consistently sleep under 6 hours, that crew does not complete the job. The residue accumulates. The deposits build. And type AB individuals who chronically sleep under 6 hours show measurably accelerated cognitive decline markers in long-term population studies. 7 to 8 hours every night. For your blood type, this is your single most important daily health behavior. Not a supplement, not a test, not a treatment. Sleep. Challenge your brain deliberately, consistently, and in ways that are genuinely new. A new language, a musical instrument, complex analytical reading on subjects outside your existing expertise. Cognitive reserve is real and measurable. Neurological redundancy built through sustained and genuine intellectual challenge creates compensatory pathways that buffer against the subtle circulation changes your blood type may generate over time. Start building that reserve now, not at 70. Now. Type AB. Remarkable immune tolerance and a brain that requires active, intentional, systematic defense, beginning today. Now, the factor that half of all blood type discussions completely skip. Your Rh factor, that plus or minus attached to your blood type letter. Most people know their letter but not their Rh status. Approximately 85% of the population is Rh positive. The remaining 15% are Rh negative, and the difference is more medically relevant than most people realize. Rh positive individuals appear to carry slightly elevated baseline resistance to certain persistent ancient infections, a product of how the Rh antigen interacts with long-standing immune memory. For Rh negative individuals, current research points to a subtly different cytokine profile, meaning the immune system's chemical signaling network operates at a different baseline calibration. Different does not mean stronger or weaker. It means different in ways that matter for specific health decisions. Some Rh negative individuals show a heightened sensitivity to inflammatory triggers, which means that regardless of your primary blood type letter, if you are Rh negative and managing any form of chronic inflammatory condition, the anti-inflammatory protocols described throughout this video become even more specifically relevant to your individual health profile. For pregnancy, and this is medically critical, Rh negative women carrying an Rh positive baby require Rh immunoglobulin treatment to prevent immune conflict between mother and child. This is established, well understood, and life-saving medicine. If this situation applies to you or to someone you care for, it requires proper medical supervision without exception. Know your complete blood type, not just the letter, the Rh factor as well, and make certain your physician has both pieces of information clearly documented. Now stop. What comes next is the most important part of everything Dr. Strong has shared today. And it is where most health content completely fails the people consuming it. Everything covered in this video, the type O cardiovascular advantage, the type A cortisol risk, the type AB brain vulnerability, all of it is statistically real. It comes from large, peer-reviewed, long-term population studies involving tens of thousands of participants tracked over decades. The science is solid, but here is what those exact same studies also consistently show. For at least half of all individuals, blood type alone predicts almost nothing about their personal health outcome. Genes load the gun. Habits pull the trigger. Dr. Strong has worked with type A patients who reached their mid-70s with immaculate cardiovascular health because they walked every day without exception, managed stress as a biological priority, slept 7 hours consistently, and ate with genuine intention. Their stickier platelets never became a clinical problem because they never gave those platelets the inflammatory environment they needed to become dangerous. He has worked with type O patients who develop severe gastric disease because they spent 30 years dismissing every signal their body was sending them. And he has seen type AB patients in their 70s with sharper, more agile cognitive function than men 15 years younger. Not because their genetics were somehow different from the statistical profile, but because they treated their blood type as a detailed roadmap rather than an unchangeable verdict. Consider two men, both type AB. both carrying that same 82% elevated cognitive risk. The first man hears the statistic and thinks, "That is just my genetics. There is nothing I can do." He continues sleeping 6 hours. He eats whatever is convenient. His blood pressure drifts upward, unchecked. By 68, the early signs of memory impairment are undeniable. The second man, call him Daniel Mercer, hears the same statistic and makes a different decision. He starts sleeping 8 hours with the same discipline he applies to his professional commitments. He adds 2 servings of wild salmon to his weekly meals. He checks his blood pressure every month and keeps it below 120/80. He picks up Spanish at 58. He reads deeply on subjects that challenge him. By 68, Daniel's cognitive assessments are those of a man a decade younger. Same blood type, same statistical risk profile, radically different outcomes, because Daniel used the information as a tool rather than as an excuse. That gap between genetic risk and actual lived outcome is precisely where your daily choices live. Every single day. Here is your complete summary. Type O. Protect your gut with the same seriousness you bring to your cardiovascular health. Get tested for H. pylori if you have not already done so. Move consistently and honor the extraordinary cardiovascular strength you were born with. Type A. Cortisol management is cardiovascular medicine for your blood type specifically. Treat it with the seriousness of a prescription. Check your homocysteine at your next blood panel and address it directly. Type B. Control inflammation as your primary health priority. Monitor your CRP annually. Rotate your food sources deliberately and embrace the metabolic flexibility that is your greatest biological asset. Type AB. Cardiovascular health and brain health are one and the same target for you. Sleep 7 to 8 hours without compromise. Prioritize omega-3s. Keep your blood pressure controlled and your mind genuinely challenged every single year. Know your RH factor and ensure your physician has it documented alongside your blood type letter. One final question before you go. What is your blood type? And does the profile described today match what you have actually experienced in your own health history? Write it in the comments. Dr. Strong reads them, and the patterns that emerge in those replies directly shape the topics covered in future videos. If you have been managing high blood pressure, persistent fatigue, or unexplained cognitive fog for years and want to understand the 3 most commonly missed root causes in men over 45, that is covered in depth in another video. The link is in the description below. You have one body. Now you know significantly more about exactly how yours works and precisely what it needs from you.